All right, everyone, welcome back to the Dairy Rate. This is spring update number 2. Going to kind of compile a few stories here coming out of the last few spring practices and, again, give kind of a coach's perspective on what's happening and where they could be going. Obviously, like with most of this kind of spring stuff, the access I have is the same probably as you do, so most of this information you can find from better sources who are a lot more talented when it comes to compiling this stuff than I am. But what I'm hoping to do is with this is to give you at least more of a coach's perspective on what these storylines maybe mean. All right, so the first thing I want to go through is talking about the buzz going around with the Badger media about a new personnel group being used on the defense. And in terms of personnel, it was a 1-5-5 front. Packer fans would recognize this. This sounds a lot like the psycho front that you heard the Packers use years ago. God, it was probably 2010. It's the last time I remember that being used. And, you know, a lot of the media, and I heard Zach Halpern and Jesse Temple talk about it on the camp, is they're seeing this as another variation of a nickel package in a passing down situation, and that's definitely true. What they're trying to do with a front like this is once they get the full blitz package put in with this personnel group, is to focus on overwhelming the point of attack in the pass rush. By overwhelming the point of attack in the pass rush, you can create pressure, obviously, but then you can influence the progression and the flow of the passing game behind it. A lot of times what you'll get is overload on one side and then rotating the coverage to that side in anticipation of something coming hot, and then having lock-on man coverage on the backside in case they try to bail. But what you're trying to do is create indecisiveness. And I think with the new bodies that we have on defense and the emphasis on speed, length, and athletic ability, could be a great package for us. And again, I would look less about the players as they are listed on the roster and think more about the skill sets that they're looking for. So, you're going to have a true nose tackle, most likely, 2 edge rushers. Okay? And, you hear James Thomas is one of those guys. He could be a 3-4 outside linebacker, no problem. Maybe not so much for me as a pass rusher. I mean, he could be a decent pass rusher. His body type could be a Sam outside linebacker in a 3-4. Getting guys like that, and it's just about getting the 11 best bodies to fill what they want to do with that particular blitz scheme. Would it be good against a run? Again, depends on the people they put in there. If they put their 5 best run-stopping linebackers, it could very well be. Again, it really depends on how they want to set up the front. Because not every defensive end in college football is 6'6", 250. Plenty of teams will put out 6'2", 240 defensive ends. It's just all about how they use their skill set. So it'll be interesting to see how that evolves. But what I think it is obviously a big part of how Luke Fickell and Mike Tressel are evolving the defense as they are getting used to the Big Ten, the players they have, etc. At Cincinnati, and this is information you can find on YouTube, and I encourage you to do so. Like most coaches, he came into Cincinnati, and year 1, they ran Luke Fickell's Ohio State defense. 4 down, match cover 4, 3-4 or 4-3 personnel, and because that's what he knew. And that's what Cincinnati knew that he knew when they hired him. So it doesn't take a rocket scientist to figure out that that's probably what he would have went in with. Because that's what most coaches do. You go with what you know. You go with your gut at the beginning. And obviously they struggled. When they came into year 2 of their program at Cincinnati, they started varying things, but they were focused on stopping a specific type of offense or offensive mindset, I guess. And so they, if you look at the American Conference, how varied the offenses are in that conference, and things that they had to work on. Navy gave them a lot of problems. And if you look at the Navy's flex bone, there's so much lateral movement in that offense and getting out in space. So that really influenced the type of players that they started working on the edges of the defense, the outside linebackers and the nickels and the safeties. So, already taking a step forward there, changing the roster type. Year 3, when they were at Cincinnati, obviously, again, with that system, the conference, they had some of the best spread offenses in there, and that was at the height of the UCF run, and their offense was all about the vertical game. So again, it was working on coverage adjustments, working on personnel adjustments on the back end, and that was another step in their evolution. And then by year 4, now you're kind of working on the nuances of the spread offense, RPOs, etc., like that. So when you have the best way to stop RPOs is not to get fancy on the back end, is literally to play man on man. But again, you have to have the right kind of athletes to do that. So that really influenced it. So when we look at how does that correspond to Wisconsin football? Well, there you go. There's the blueprint right there. Year 1, they ran what they knew with the guys that we had and tried to find that balance between their system and Wisconsin's roster and Wisconsin ideals. I think this year, now they're going to look at solving the blank problem. Okay, what offensive philosophy or where on their defense were they vulnerable the most? I think we saw that, seen that already. They're taking that Navy plan. They're working on getting speed and athleticism on the outsides to be able to stretch the field sideline to sideline. And we're going to keep seeing that evolution. And I think this psycho front and all the transfers at the linebacker spot are a big key to this steady, gradual evolution of the defense. And that's what you need. Because unless you're going to be a Deion Sanders and wipe out your entire roster in 1 year, you need evolution. Because even in year 4, you're still going to have the predecessor's players on your roster. So what you do has to fit both what you want to do and what your predecessor wanted to do in a gradual way. It's not going to be to year 5 or 6 until he has all of his guys. So it's going to be an evolution. And I'm encouraged to hear the different personnel groups that they've been using. And hearing a lot of different names, and more importantly, hearing some of these names that we are excited about, hearing them making plays in practice. That was good to hear. All right. The next thing I want to talk about is not so much about spring practice, but it's an interesting short article that I found on Football Scoop. I was just talking with Phil Longo about how he's grown as a play caller. And it's a very short little article, but it had some really good little insights about how an offensive coordinator looks to evolve his game. And first things first that I find really interesting with what he did is I think he showed, one of our fatal flaws as coaches early in his career is in that he didn't evaluate himself. He spent probably more time evaluating the players and the system and trying to grow the system, but maybe he didn't think so much about himself. And that's a fatal flaw a lot of coaches, myself included, have, where you try to find the most complicated answer to a simple question. And sometimes the answer is, I just made bad calls. I went away from something too early than I should have. God knows I do that all the time. I constantly second guess myself. So it's good that he admitted early on in his career that he needed to work on that. And then what I really found interesting, and this is 1,000% true, is as he went forward in his career, he spent more time engaging with defensive coaches and learning from them about his offense than he also did talking to the Mike Leaches and the Cliff Kingsbury's of the world and evolving the offensive system. Because at the end of the day, the best offense is the one that gives the defense the most trouble. And for me, like as a head coach, and since I have to, think about offense and defense, that's where I start with my defense, is what would give me as an offensive play caller trouble, and evolve the system from that point, keeping it as simple as possible with that mantra, what would give me as an offensive coach the most trouble, and building it on from there. So understanding defensive football and building your offense around a defense is a great way to get new insight on your offensive system, because every offensive system looks easy on paper, and every offensive system will work on paper, but will only work to the level that the defenses that you're playing against will allow. And if you do not take defenses into account in designing your offense, then you're going to have trouble. Now, that's where in the air raid that looking into defenses kind of ends, is when you get in the designing, portion, especially in the passing game. You're taking into account learning from defenses, how defenses react, etc. When we get on the football field, it's all about throwing to the open space. Is the guy open? Yes, throw the ball. I don't care where the defender is. I don't care how he got there. But it's about getting the ball in open space. Spending too much time reading defenses really slows down the process. So it's an interesting way that through the air raid you can build, still using some traditional football thoughts and mentalities with understanding defenses, but then keeping an air raid mindset when it comes to the actual execution of the plays. All right, and then the last thing that I want to talk about is obviously the quarterback competition. Phil Longo said in his media availability, it's a 4-person quarterback competition. First thing I want to say about that, well, of course it is. If he, and I think people are looking way too into all of this, but we'll get into that. You don't want to just, especially in a media availability, first thing, he's not going to give you anything noteworthy, because every Big Ten team is watching every media availability. There's an intern taking notes. We all know that. But what message does it send to your roster? Be like, nope, there is no competition. Tyler Van Dyke walks in day one. He is the starter. No ifs, ands, or buts. No competition. Everyone is competing for second place. Okay? What good would that do for the offense? What good would that do for the program? Nothing. So, all 4 quarterbacks at the top of the roster are in competition, because if any of them just shows ridiculous talent and has the knowledge of the offense, understands what we need to do, Phil Longo is going to play who gives them the best chance to win. That's his job. He is not, focusing on egos and worrying about if somebody's going to transfer or not. I think this might be the problem that Wisconsin had when Jack Cohn was hurt and Graham Mertz started that entire season, even when he started to struggle after he got sick and all that kind of stuff. I think he started because Paul Chryst was worried that he was going to transfer. Now, was he the best quarterback on the roster? Probably. Should he have started? Probably. But there was as much non-football as there was football involved in that decision. So this is a way to make sure that every quarterback on the roster thinks that they're a part of the competition. But we will know when we get to the fall how the competition worked out. The guys lower on the roster are competing to see who's still going to be here. Because I firmly believe there will be at least one quarterback transferring after this spring. And I'll write it down on a piece of paper and I'll show you guys after the spring. But I have my money on who it's going to be. And I hope I'm wrong, but we'll see. And if Braden Locke plays well enough to secure the starting job in fall camp, I don't care about spring ball. Again, fall camp. He should be ahead in spring ball. He should, because he has more experience in the offense. He should be ahead. If Braden Locke is the best quarterback on the roster in fall camp, he should be the starter. If he is, our offense is set for the next 3 years. That's not a bad thing. Again, also means that we're probably going to have a quarterback transfer. It's fine. Okay? Guys, the young guys coming up through the system, if Braden Locke becomes a starter for the next 3 years, we're going to have a kid with 2 or 3 years of eligibility coming after that, and he's going to develop, and we're going to get into the pattern where we're going to have development, a couple of years of starter, but then develop. So we're not going to get in a situation where we're always going to have either a redshirt senior starter every year. We can grow through the system. Do I think that's going to happen? No. Because I still firmly believe this is Tyler Van Dyke's job to lose. Less about Braden Locke's job to win, more about Tyler Van Dyke's job to lose. By the time we get to fall camp, I'm confident that he's going to show enough that he needs to be the starter. And if he doesn't, Braden's got to win the job. He's got to prove that he needs to be the starter, not that he has to be the starter. I think we're in a decent position either way. I mean, they brought in Tyler Van Dyke because they liked what they saw and they liked what they thought he could do in the offense. And Phil Longo brought in Braden Locke last year for the same reason. And we'll see how the quarterback competition plays out. But don't read too much into that we're splitting reps. Again, we talked about why they're splitting reps. And it's not a shock that certain guys are progressing in the system right now faster than others. All right, so that's our 3 talking points we want to go through today. Next video, hopefully it's going to be a little bit of a Q&A. Put the post up there on Twitter and on Substack. Try to get some questions. We'll do a video. We'll do a little bit of written piece in both those locations. And, see where your guys' head's at. Hopefully, soon we're going to find out, are we going to get some kind of spring game? Is there going to be video footage that we can see? Again, I built my channel on breaking film down, and we're in a period right now where there's not really much to break down. There's not, other than 10-second video clips of plays, there's not much for me to break down, but we'll do what we can. All right, so that's it for today. We'll see you next time. Thanks for watching.